Hello, gem hunter. Would you believe me if I told you that there are many gems lost in nature, just waiting for the right opportunity to be found? Now imagine for a moment that you're walking along the banks of a river and you come across a dull, unremarkable stone. But after looking at it and seeing that it looks like an ordinary stone, you just throw it away. But what you may not know is that this stone could be a precious jewel. And if this has never happened to you, you can be sure it has happened to someone you know. Unfortunately, this situation is more common than you might think. And here's why. Not all precious gems are found in nature in polished and obvious form. In general, most precious gems are irregular, opaque, or very dirty, encrusted or trapped inside other minerals. That's why you need a closer look to find these gems. But before we go any further, let me ask you a question. If you found a sapphire or a ruby in a river, would you be able to recognize it? Well, if the answer is no, then this video is for you. Because today I'm going to show you how to identify these two gems if you find one of them lying around. But what do you need to know to develop that closer look? Well, take rubies, for example, which are rare, precious stones that can even be found in the rivers where you live. Now look at this rough specimen and notice how imperfect it is, with some inclusions. So when you notice another stone, clean it well and keep it with you until you're sure what mineral it is. This applies to sapphires, diamonds, agates, and almost any type of precious mineral you might be lucky enough to find. First, it's important to note that rubies and sapphires are actually the same mineral, corundum. This mineral is composed of oxygen and aluminum, with small impurities that give these stones their characteristic colors. On the Mohs scale, which measures the hardness of minerals, corundum is just below diamond, with a hardness of 9, while diamond has a maximum hardness of 10. This makes corundum the second hardest mineral in the world. Rubies and sapphires are essentially the same. The main difference between them is their color. Rubies are always red, while sapphires can come in a variety of colors. Therefore, if you find a ruby in a certain region, it is very likely that you will also find sapphires, as both minerals are formed under similar geological conditions. It's worth noting that rubies and sapphires are extremely highly valued on the gemstone market, but this is only true for high-quality gems. As with diamonds, the value of these stones depends very much on the intensity of the color and the degree of crystallization. More crystalline stones with intense colors tend to be much more valuable. Not every ruby or sapphire found in nature is of high quality. Stones with a weak color or that are not suitable for cutting are known as industrial rubies. These stones, while not valuable as gemstones, are very useful as abrasives due to their hardness. However, don't be discouraged if you find an industrial ruby. It could be an indicator that with further exploration, you may find a very high-quality ruby or sapphire in the same area. But how do you know where to find rubies or sapphires before you go looking in some river? First of all, it's important to learn to recognize the indicators of these stones, which apply to any type of terrain. There are natural clues that can guide you, and these clues are the minerals associated with rubies and sapphires. By identifying these minerals, you increase your chances of being in a region rich in precious stones. One of the main clues is the presence of white quartz, which we talked about in an earlier video. This mineral usually occurs in areas where rubies and sapphires are also found. Also look for schist and mica schist, which are shiny, fragile materials that crumble easily when touched. Mica in particular is an excellent indicator. It comes in a variety of colors, and the more mica you find, the more likely you are to be near rubies or sapphires. Another important mineral to identify is pegmatite, a rock related to granite and composed of quartz and feldspar. It is hard, full of visible granular inclusions, and usually gray in color. Depending on your region, you may even find large walls of pegmatite. Also look for aluminous gneisses, gray rocks with long striations that contain large amounts of aluminum, the main element in the formation of rubies and sapphires. Zoisite, a light green mineral, is also often found in association with rubies. Green stones with pink flecks can be a strong sign that you are in an area with potential for rubies. And if you see basalt, marble, and granite in the area, this could also indicate the presence of these gems. Remember, the more of these indicators you find, the better your chances of finding rubies or sapphires. So the next time you go gem prospecting, keep these signs in mind and be aware of the nature around you. Now you know how to tell if a river near you has sapphires or rubies. But regardless, we're going to show you how to recognize these stones in practice, right in the rivers. Finding a ruby or sapphire, even if it's not the best color, is an excellent sign. This is because the stones in the rivers undergo a kind of natural selection. The higher quality gems are stronger and more resistant, while the lower quality gems are more fragile and break over time. Over the years, the more fragile stones are eliminated by contact with other rocks, while the more durable stones remain intact. Here are a few examples of stones found in Brazil. At first glance, they look like ordinary river stones, but they are actually sapphires. Although the colors are not as vivid, the size of these stones can add value, as they are rare in such dimensions. Another example is these grayish-green stones, another type of sapphire that comes from rivers. Now guess what these reddish stones are? That's right, they are rubies. Notice that the color is a pinkish red, not very intense but noticeable. Although they are not of the highest quality, they can become valuable after cutting, like the stones you see on your screen now. Here are some of the rubies we showed you earlier, now cut and ready for sale. But how do you identify a stone like this? How can you tell if it's a ruby or a sapphire? The first thing to look at is the weight. Rubies and sapphires are dense gemstones and can weigh almost twice as much as an ordinary stone, such as quartz, jasper, or agate. This difference in weight means that these stones tend to accumulate in rivers with other heavy minerals such as ilmenite and chromite, a dense mixture of iron and titanium. This phenomenon occurs because, over time, rivers cause the heavier stones to concentrate in cavities, while the lighter stones are carried away by the current. Another mineral that can indicate the presence of rubies and sapphires is garnet, a reddish gemstone that is also quite heavy. However, it is important not to confuse garnet with ruby. The red of rubies is more pinkish, while that of garnets is more brownish. A handy way to identify rubies is to use an ultraviolet flashlight. When exposed to this light, rubies usually glow an intense pink, while other stones remain the same color under UV light. However, this test is specific to rubies, as sapphires do not react to UV light in the same way. In addition, a crucial characteristic to observe in rubies and sapphires is the stone's DNA. This term refers to the presence of unique patterns on the surface of the stones that act like a fingerprint. Rubies and sapphires often have a network of intersecting lines, similar to a game of tic-tac-toe. Take, for example, these samples of cut golden sapphires, where the lines are clearly visible. In some cases, it is also possible to observe the asterism effect, where a star of light appears on the stone under illumination. This pattern is not always obvious, so it is important to carefully inspect any heavy stone you find. A magnifying glass can be useful to see these characteristics in more translucent or lower quality stones. Another detail to look for are the spiral patterns that can appear on some gemstones. These patterns are characteristic and deserve special attention, as they may indicate that you are holding a gemstone. And finally, be careful if you find a broken stone. Rubies and sapphires are extremely tough and hard, which means they don't break easily. Unlike other gemstones, such as quartz, jasper, or agate, which when broken tend to produce a smooth, shiny fracture similar to glass, rubies and sapphires have no cleavage. And when they do break, they do so in a totally irregular manner, with dull edges and little shine. This is an essential characteristic for distinguishing them. If you find a stone that looks dull and uneven, don't be too quick to dismiss it. It could very well be a ruby or a rough sapphire. Also remember that the presence of a lower quality stone may indicate that you are in a promising environment where high quality gems can also be found. Another important point is the location of the search. Rubies and sapphires tend to accumulate in certain areas of rivers, such as bends, shallow areas, or where the current slows down, as these areas facilitate the accumulation of heavy materials. So you should observe the behavior of the river and map areas where gravel accumulates, because these are the places where heavy minerals, such as rubies, diamonds, and garnets are deposited, hidden under the gravel, just waiting for someone to find them, which means that this information can make all the difference in your search. And remember, the key to finding any gemstone is knowing the right signs. This includes not only knowing the weight and density of the stone, but also understanding the geological context around it. That's why in today's video, you will see at firsthand all the signs that indicate the presence of quartz crystals, rubies, sapphires, and diamonds, so that you will know once and for all if there is a possibility of finding any of these crystals in your area. But now I want to show you something else. Do you know this diamond that is now appearing on your screen? It was found in the wild by a child, and today it is valued over $10 million. In other words, knowing how to look for quartz, rubies, and sapphires can actually improve your financial life. But knowing how to find diamonds is the kind of information that can change your life forever. But ironically, did you know that the best way to find gems in nature is not to look for them? Sounds counterintuitive, right? But you'll see in a minute. Before you start looking for gems, you should never start looking for them directly. First, you need to identify the signs that indicate the presence of these gems in the region you are searching. Only after you have found these clues should you begin your search. But if crystals are so important and can be worth so much, can you find them in nature? Yes, it's possible. And to prove it, you can start by looking for quartz crystals, which are the second most common mineral on Earth. In other words, you could end up finding quartz crystals in your backyard, depending on your region. However, you don't need indicator minerals to find quartz because it is very abundant, and you just have to go out into nature and look for it. But for rarer crystals like rubies and diamonds, you need to identify indicator minerals to know if it's possible to find gems in that region. So the more indicators you have, the better your chances of finding these crystals. Starting with the large quartz family with different types of crystals, and some of these crystals like amethyst, for example, are highly prized both rough and cut. And we also have other colors like citrine, which is the yellow variety of quartz, and aventurine, which is green quartz, dendritic quartz, blue quartz, milky quartz, and we also have smoky quartz, which is more common. And in case you didn't know, minerals are not always hidden underground, for example. If you look for quartz crystals in nature, you can find them in large quantities on beaches, rivers, and in canyons. But if you find milky quartz or white quartz, it's possible that there are gold veins in your area. And not only that, if you find quartz with micas in the same area, you should know that this is a great indication of the presence of precious stones such as topazes, rubies, agates, jades, and sapphires. And you might think that it's very difficult to go out and find gems. And depending on where you live, it might be. But first of all, you have to look in the rivers that go on for miles and miles. So if you look in the gravel that forms on the banks, you'll be able to see most of the indications there. And if you can identify almost all of the indications that I'm going to show you here, your chances are only going to increase. So pay attention. If you look in rivers, you might end up finding diamonds. That's true for many gems. But in general, when it comes to finding crystals in nature, what you have the best chance of finding are quartz crystals. And even though they are common, you can already start making money with these crystals, as they can be used for various purposes. And because there are different colors of quartz, you can use them in place of other more expensive gems. For example, this purple sapphire is actually a very high-quality amethyst. However, there are more valuable quartzes with rutile inclusions that form beautiful golden or black structures inside the crystals. This means that if you find a good quality crystalline rutile, like the one that is now appearing on your screen, you can certainly make good dollars with this stone. But don't be fooled by these golden inclusions, because in case you didn't know, this is not gold. Throughout human history, many veins of gold have been found associated with quartz crystals. For this reason, some lay people end up breaking these stones to extract what they think is gold trapped inside the quartz crystal. But they end up frustrated because rutile is just a compound of titanium dioxide. So if you find a piece with this characteristic, you already know not to break it. It will lose its market value. And to find a beauty like this, you just have to be careful when you go looking for these stones. If you find one crystal, you can be sure that there are others scattered around the area. For example, you are looking for gems in a ravine on the side of a dirt road, and you find a black tourmaline, maybe in the same ravine. You'll find it, lots of other tourmalines, which if you're lucky, might be other colors. But what if you're on the banks of a river and you want to look for rubies and sapphires? Well, first it's important to know that rubies and sapphires are the same thing, scientifically called corundum, which is composed of oxygen and aluminum in some impurities. This means that the same clues used to find rubies can be used to find sapphires. So if you find rubies, you may end up finding sapphires in the same region. The difference is that rubies are defined by the color red, while sapphires represent all other colors. This is the second hardest mineral in existence with a hardness of 9 Mohs compared to 10 Mohs for diamond. This means that it is second only to diamond on the Mohs scale. But what about finding it? What do you have to analyze to find them? Well, in the case of rubies and sapphires, there are many indicators that will help you in your search. A good sign is usually areas with a lot of white quartz. You can also find micas in these areas, which, if you've never seen them, are shiny materials that come apart easily, much like fish scales. Another important indicator is pegmatite, which is basically a granite-like rock made up of a mixture of quartz and feldspar. There are usually huge walls of this rock in the region, but when found in smaller quantities, it is a hard rock full of visible granular inclusions, usually grayish. Alumina gneiss rocks are also a good sign. These rocks have a lot of aluminum in their chemical composition, which is the main element in the formation of rubies or sapphires. Because of this, they have a lighter gray color and in some areas look a bit like granite, except that the stripes are longer. Some zoisite minerals are also often found in association with rubies. So if you find green pebbles with pink dots, keep an eye out, as this could be a strong indication of the presence of rubies in the area. In addition, finding basalt, marble, and granite could also be a good indication of the presence of rubies and sapphires in your area. Because rubies and sapphires have a high density, they can weigh almost twice as much as an ordinary stone compared to quartz, jasper, or agate of the same size. For this reason, these crystals tend to accumulate in cavities in riverbeds, taking only lighter stones with them. Garnet, for example, is another mineral that indicates the presence of rubies and sapphires in your area. And because it is a heavy, precious stone with a reddish color, it can be mistaken for a ruby, but the color of garnet is different from that of ruby. While the red of a ruby is more pink, the red of a garnet is more brown. One test you can do to identify rubies in a practical way is to use ultraviolet light. Under ultraviolet light, rubies have an intense pink color that stands out, while the other stones will be the same color as the ultraviolet light.
Oh yeah, that's 100%. It's a chunker too.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
Are you kidding? Right on the surface.
But what if you want to find diamonds? What clues do you need to look for to find them? Well, I'm sure this video will change the way you look at things. And the first of these is the garnet, a stone that is considered precious when found in high quality. So if you don't find diamonds but you find good garnets, that's already a great find. Some are low quality or not even red. They can be opaque and brown, full of cracks or very small, looking like little balls. In addition, kimberlites associated with garnets are a great sign of the presence of diamonds in the region. If you've watched other videos on this channel, you already know that kimberlite is lava that comes out of the depths of the earth through volcanic eruptions. As a result, this lava ends up carrying diamonds and other minerals that form in the Earth's crust. As this lava cools, the minerals in it become trapped, including diamonds and diopside. These are beautiful green stones that are used in some jewelry, but they also have industrial value for making ceramics. Diopside is green because of the chromium and is often found in the same regions as diamonds. Just like chromite, which is almost always mentioned in diamond-related research. If you find only chromite, that's enough to consider the presence of diamonds in the area. So it's worth learning how to identify it. And chromite can occur in a wide variety of rocks. Its colors range from black to dark brown with a metallic sheen. The key is to look closely at the mineral's characteristics or have a sample of it. This will make it much easier to identify when you're standing in front of one. Another important diamond indicator that every experienced prospector knows is ilmenite. These are heavy rocks for their size, but now switching from rocks to minerals, we have another gemstone that is usually found in diamond-bearing rocks. That is peridot. This beautiful green stone. You may not think it's as green as this one, but it's important that you recognize it, because although peridot is also a precious stone, it is a very beautiful one. We're exploring it to see if there are any diamonds in the area. And it doesn't end there, because if you need help identifying the stones you have found in nature, but you don't have access to an experienced prospector or gemologist in your area, know that you can identify these stones yourself from the comfort of your own home. just access our Gemology ebook for beginners by clicking on the first link in the description, because there you will have access to home methods that will help you identify these minerals, with home tests and complete tables with all the crystals already cataloged. So if you're doing research to find out if a region is good for gemstones, all you need to do is identify these indicators. If necessary, I recommend that you watch the video again, write down the key points, and return to the field with these tips in mind. The more knowledge you have, the better your chances of success. Many people with a little courage and a willingness to venture out end up finding many hidden treasures in nature. Whether it is a simple walk through the woods or along the banks of a river, many of our subscribers tell us in the comments about the gems they find. So if you'd like to start this therapeutic hobby that keeps you in touch with nature and gives you the opportunity to earn some extra income, I'd encourage you to start right now. Who knows, you might even discover a new mineral deposit out there. And to help you identify these stones, there are several complete videos here on the channel about different types of gemstones, including diamonds, with home tests to help you get to know the stones you find out there better. But if you want all this knowledge organized in one place, by accessing the first link in the description of this video, you can purchase our digital book, Gemology for Beginners, a complete and illustrated material containing the Dictionary of Minerals, where you will learn the main characteristics of all the precious and semi-precious stones that exist in the world. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Good luck, Gem Hunter.